You may have heard of birth doulas and death doulas, but have you ever heard of a trauma doula? That's me. My name's Toni, and I'm the trauma doula, and this is your place to heal trauma, body, and soul. Thank you so much for joining the Trauma Doula podcast, and welcome back. If it's your first time, again, thanks for being here. And if it's not your first time, hey, what's going on? How y'all doing? What is the truth you tell no one? What are the things that you've wanted to say that you can't say? What are those feelings that you have that you can't seem to put into words? What are people telling you that you don't seem to want to hear? These are some of the questions that I would begin to ask this week as we talk about trauma in the throat chakra. Welcome back to the podcast. So, the throat chakra, let's talk about it. It's located on your neck, the front of your neck, we could say, right where an Adam's apple would be, right where if you put your fingers on your throat as you talk, you can hear your voice box vibrate. That is the place of the throat chakra. The throat chakra's color is blue. And when we start to talk about trauma in the throat chakra, we're talking about communication. We're talking about truth, our own truth. And we're talking about even our integrity and our willpower. Because what is truth if not acted on? The thing about the throat chakra is it's active. Your voice is active. And there is a podcast episode, I believe, that's called The Trauma of Being Unheard. And that will talk a lot about some throat chakra themes. But we'll just talk about it here too. But that one is a really good one if you feel called to it. But when we start to get into the throat chakra, how often were you allowed to say what you felt growing up? Were you allowed to say what you felt? Or were you allowed to even speak? When you were hungry, were you allowed to say you're hungry? When you felt like your parents or your caregivers or your teachers even were being unfair, were you allowed? A lot of the trauma with the throat chakra and blockages in the throat chakra arise from feeling and being silenced. Many childhood trauma survivors are silenced. Many of us don't get to tell our truth. Maybe we're shamed for having feelings or for trying to voice those feelings, even if we're telling the truth. Maybe you weren't just shamed. Maybe you were beat for telling the truth. These are just some of the common things that happen when you have trauma in the throat chakra. The throat chakra is the place where not only are you listening to and for the truth of others, because the thing about communication in this throat chakra space, it's not just how you communicate with others. It is also how others communicate with you. To be a good communicator, you have to also listen. You have to hear what other people are saying. And you have to understand what other people are telling you, whether through their own words or through their actions. And I think something that happens when we have this deficit, this dysfunction in our own throat chakra is it can be super hard to speak up. Oftentimes they'll say, especially when we're young, we get a lot of messages that you should do the right thing even when no one's looking. And yet, especially if we've had emotionally immature families and things like that and grew up in settings with adults who were not right, and maybe they didn't do the right thing, and then we spoke up about them not doing the right things, and you're 10, you're 5, and then you get the message, the the communication that that's not quite true. It's not quite true. Adults can do what they want. They don't have to do the right thing. You have to do the right thing, or even the wrong thing because I said it and I'm an adult, right? And so then it crosses a lot of our own boundaries, and we learn to cross our own boundaries because that's what they taught us. A lot of trauma in the throat chakra is about not only feeling unheard, but feeling voiceless. Because maybe you did keep speaking up. Maybe you did continue to speak for what was right. Maybe you did call out when people were not good to you or not fair. I'm hearing that a lot. It's not fair. Kids say that a lot. And that's because in our society, we don't listen to children because we don't believe they have value, because they don't pay bills. They don't have money, so they don't have value, because we only value money. Look around at our society. It doesn't matter what you say. It's what you do. And truth is acted upon. Recognizing, like, when you were younger, or even now when you're saying that's not fair, why are you doing that? You're trying to communicate. You're calling things out. It's as if you said nothing at all. It's that feeling of voicelessness, powerlessness. Because when we're in communication with others. And that other person also has to have their listening ears on to have a real conversation, communication. And this really starts to get into power dynamics. And I know we're talking about the throat chakra, but if you were telling someone, hey, you're crossing my boundaries, I don't like that you're doing that. And this other person is, I don't really care what you're saying. I'm going to do it anyway because I believe I should have control and power over you. We're talking about power dynamics. And throat chakra trauma is deeply embedded, especially for a lot of the female-bodied people and people of the global majority in this society. Because speaking up requires that other people are listening. And having that true communication requires that other people listen. And so there is a deep void in the space of the throat chakra in our entire society. Something else about the throat chakra, though, is that oftentimes, if you get that lump in your throat, not everyone gets that. Sometimes maybe you have a sore throat. Not everyone gets that. I know my mom loses her voice for about a week every single year. That's throat chakra blockage. If you recognize any of these things, that's some imbalanced throat chakra blockages. You probably have a lot of stuff you want to say that you haven't said yet. A lot of people that you need to tell off that you haven't told off yet. Recognize that just because you're being silenced does not mean that you're not in your truth. It doesn't mean you're not communicating. It just means maybe you're talking to some other people that have an imbalanced throat chakra. And that's not on you. So think about the ways that you express yourself. I've noticed a lot of people with throat chakra imbalances and wounds are often afraid to speak, but they're also often afraid to sing, and they're also often afraid to express that they have a need. Not a want, but yes, sometimes they're wants, but a need. I really need this. People with imbalanced throat chakras are often terrified to express needs and can often pretend like they don't want anything so they don't have to be hurt in that way continuously. How do you express yourself? A lot of people with throat chakra imbalances are often artists that do not express their art. So whether that's writing, whether that's coloring, whether it's singing, painting, cooking. All of these things are arts. So don't think of art as only drawing or only writing. The things that you do to express who you are, what you want, your truth, your creativity, all of those are throat chakra themes. As you come into feeling into the space of your throat, and you might be noticing a little something as I'm talking about it, and that's okay. If you're noticing tightening or tension or squeezing or lump or whatever, just let that be there for this moment. The thing about your throat chakra is it is a place of truth for you. And when you are connected to your heart chakra and you allow that truth to come up into your throat chakra, you can express something. You can express the desires, not only of your heart, but of your soul. And when you're in alignment with that and you allow that type of communication to well up from within you, you can begin to act on. Because remember, truth is expressed in action and thought, in words and deeds, okay? Truth is an action, is a verb. It does something. When it is expressed, you can begin to live in your own authentic truth. And when that happens, it doesn't matter if the person across from you, throat chakra, is activated and balanced or not, because you're living in your own integrity, and that's the important thing. You're expressing your own creativity, and you'll be a beacon to other people who are expressing their own authentic communication, their own truth, their own creativity. As you begin to balance that out, a part of yourself will begin to heal, because we are often told that our thoughts and our feelings and our creativity isn't important, especially if you went through a traditional school system, especially if you went through K-12 American school. It is not for the creative. It's not for the truth teller. It's not for the communicator. You write about other people's books, but in school they don't teach you to write your own. You write about other people's ideas, but they don't teach you to have your own ideas. And so the throat chakra is very imbalanced in our society. I honestly don't think there's one chakra that is balanced in our society, because of the way that we raise children and raise each other and treat each other. How can it be? But you can begin to start, and that begins with recognizing right now what is happening as I'm talking about your throat chakra. That will give you a clue as to what it needs and how it's feeling. Remember, when you remain silent about who you are and what you want and how you feel, you tell everyone that silenced you before that they were right, and that your feelings and what you wanted and what you needed didn't matter. But that wouldn't be the truth. In fact, that is far from the truth. It did matter. It does matter. And you can begin to affirm yourself, to heal your own inner child, and to grow in a love and an appreciation for who you are and what you want and how you feel. Sign up for the newsletter for those healing bites on actionable tools towards healing, and look out for the trauma recovery yoga experience, which will be coming available this fall as a membership.